Welcome to episode number 44 of Life Without Cravings. I have named this episode Lesson from Karate Kid and How to Eat the Cake and Still Have It. So just bear with me for a little bit and I will explain everything. I was thinking this morning about what I would have needed to hear 10 or 20 years ago when I needed help to break my sugar addiction. And I'm a very practical and scientific person. I don't believe in things that don't make sense to me. So when I was thinking that I needed to hear that it's possible to train away the cravings. That it's not something that is just a part of me, if that makes sense. It's just a learned behavior that has become an addiction, and that it's entirely possible to swap that around. For those of you who think, yeah, okay, I get it, but you don't know me, it's harder for me, I'm the snowflake, I'm the unicorn, or whatever, that was me. I want to add to the mix that I am very stubborn, for good and for bad. It helps me sometimes, but it can also work against me. So if you feel a lot of resentment towards doing the work, believe me when I say that I did as well. I did not want to do it. And I think that is part of why it took me so long to actually go through it, because I was going through phases of acceptance with phases of resistance. And it was just this wave pattern that had to go up and down for me until my brain could calm down enough to realize that actually I do want this. My whole life, I have always felt as if I should be able to do anything that I choose to and still get the results that I want. I felt very entitled to having that right to do that. And the problem when it came to sugar, for me at least, was that I wanted to eat the sugar, but I didn't want the headaches, I didn't want the joint pain, or the weight gain that came with it. But I didn't want to give up the sugar. I wanted to find another way of doing it. I wanted the cravings to go away so that I didn't have to eat the sugar. I wanted to not want the sugar anymore, but I didn't want to do the work to not want the sugar. So whenever I tried to quit, there was just a lot of resentment and so much willpower being poured into making this happen. And that would just drain away all my energy really, really quickly. Obviously, it didn't work. It never works. It doesn't work for anyone to do it that way. So what I want to offer you today is a way for you to move forward without giving up your poison of choice, whether that be carbs or maybe, alcohol, coffee, whatever it is. You can use the same technique for anything that you feel like you have an addictive behavior towards, even if you don't identify as a food addict. It doesn't matter, because it's the same way in your brain. The addiction part is just whether it's something that is harder to break or not, pretty much. I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go into that. And this is where Karate Kid comes in. And I'm pretty sure that most people are familiar with the movie, so I'm not going to rehash the whole movie, and I'm talking about the original movie. And I haven't seen this movie since I was a kid, and it still had a big impression on me. And I'm sure most people who, saw this movie in the 80s, 90s remembers it pretty well. There are a few scenes in that movie that most people will probably remember, like Mr. Miyagi trying to catch flies with his chopsticks and then finally succeed, which is not what I'm going to talk about. And then the scene that I want to talk about is when Daniel is having to do the wax on, wax off. I can't really remember exactly, but it felt like he was doing that for weeks on end without doing anything else. Probably not quite true, but that's how my brain remembers it. That he was having to do that all the time, over and over again. That's the scene that I want to analyze a little bit and go into. It's not hard to understand why Mr. Miyagi had Daniel do this, but I remember that I thought that it was probably a little bit silly and excessive. I was definitely on Daniel's side. I thought he was just being extra mean to Daniel and that he wouldn't have to do it that much. But he had to go through this wax on, wax off movement for every day, weeks on end, probably. That's how I remember it. My point is that Daniel was so frustrated with this. He was under pressure to get really good at karate and beat this bad guy before this upcoming competition or whatever it was. So he was under time pressure. So he didn't have a lot of patience, which I completely understand and identify with. And he thought that he just had to go through a lot of bullshit and that Mr. Miyagi was just testing him for some reason, but not actually teaching him karate that he wanted to be taught. And he didn't want to waste his time just waxing on and off, because what he wanted to learn was all the cool moves that he could use to actually take out his opponent, because this was what he believed that he needed to win. Obviously, in the movie, he won the competition because he had learned all these blocking movements from the wax on, wax off that he needed. Then he used this famous and ridiculous looking crane pose kick that he previously didn't quite value so much. Didn't think that that was real karate. But Mr. Miyagi had a different opinion. So what I want you to really think about and learn from this is that the method that you use to build a healthy relationship with food may not seem relevant to start with. And while you are practicing, you might not be able to see a lot of progress. It might feel like a waste of time, but it's a skill that you're building, and that skill will pay off later. It's just that you won't see it right now. So if you think about the movie, how many times did Daniel have to do the wax on, wax off movement? I don't know, but I know that it was a lot, because Mr. Miyagi wanted him to learn to do it without thinking about it. He wanted it to become a reflex, something automatic, because thinking takes time. If you want to master a skill, any skill, you don't want to have to think about it or concentrate on doing it. You want it to be effortless and automatic. When a skill is effortless and automatic, you're really good at it. You're not going to fail. So you want to train away this behavior that you have to give in to your cravings, for example. This is why I'm so persistent with all my clients and practicing the new behavior at least 100 times. Because I don't want them to have to keep thinking about it. I don't want them to have to keep concentrating at it for the rest of their lives. I want it to be effortless and automatic. I want it to just be part of the person that they have now become. I want it to be part of who you are. Daniel had to work through his resistance to doing what looked like useless, mundane exercises that didn't teach him anything. And he had to work through this in his head to start trusting his teacher or his master and just know that I'm going to do this no matter what. I'm going to do exactly what he tells me to do, and I'm going to go 100% in, not because I know that this is the best way of doing it, but because I'm trusting my master and I'm trusting the process that he's putting me through. And that's always what I'm asking my clients to do. I'm asking them to trust the process and commit to the process 100%. It's not about the results at this time. We want to stop focusing on the outcome and just focus on the process and make the process happen until it becomes automatic. Because if you practice enough, when you are put to the test, it will happen automatically. You won't even have to think about it. And that's the beauty of it. And it sounds like science fiction maybe to you, or the impossible, but it's entirely possible. So just think about, is there anything in your life that you have learned that you never thought that you could learn just because you practiced? I bet there is something. And this is why you can eat the cake and have it for now. And I say for now because once you have learned how to do this, you won't need to eat the cake anymore. It would be easy to cut it out because you don't want it. That's how powerful it is. When you retrain your brain, you're not even going to want it anymore. You can easily train yourself to want it again, but we don't have to go there. And there's not going to, there's not going to be a pull. There's not going to be a need to go there again. So when you have done this enough times, you won't feel that pull. Maybe you won't have any craving. Some people don't. Others, like me, have a different kind of craving. They're more like fleeting thoughts. I can have thoughts about the foods that I used to crave, but I don't feel that pull towards them. I don't really want them anymore. Doesn't mean that the thoughts are going away. But the thing is that if you just focus on the process and you forget about the pressure to stop eating sugar or carbs, for now, it will still happen. It doesn't really matter if you're eating them for now, as long as you keep practicing. It will 100% happen, That's what you have to believe. You have to believe that this process works. And I know it does. And I'm hoping that you believe that it does as well. Back to the movie. If someone random on the street throws a punch at Daniel, I bet you his hand is going to come up, block that punch automatically without him thinking about it. That's the beauty of the reflexes. And having reflexes combined with the movement that he has practiced, which is the block. And the same way that someone who's eating chocolate in front of you, if they ask you, hey, do you want some chocolate? You will automatically just say no without thinking about it because you practiced it. You no longer want chocolate. You're not a person who eats chocolate anymore. Or maybe you're just not a person who eats chocolate randomly. Maybe you're just a person who eats chocolate when you have decided that you're going to do it and you're going to have some really fancy chocolate, something special, not just random $1 chocolate. So even if you, up until now, hasn't really believed that you can stop because of your cravings, I want to offer you this. First of all, go and take my free course, Food Freedom Foundations. It's 100% free. All you have to do is go to the link in the description, sign up, and you will get email and you will get login to a membership where you can watch the videos where I'll teach you how to do it. And then practice this 100 times on purpose. It's not hard to do. It's very, very simple. You don't have to change a single thing in your diet while you're doing this, unless you really want to. And unless you can do it without forcing yourself with willpower. This is really important. We don't want to bring in any resistance or willpower or anything. We just want to focus on the process, practicing that process. And if you do this, it's going to change everything for you. And all it will cost you is a few minutes per day. So I challenge you, do the course, practice 100 times, and then send me a message and let me know what changes you have seen by doing this alone. I'll see you again next week. Bye.